Welcome in. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. No, Thursday. Happy Thursday. What am I saying? Happy Thursday. You'd think I'd know. Tuesday, Thursday, walk and talk. It's Thursday. My mind is on yesterday. Welcome in. Please read the show notes. If you have questions, put a question mark with it in chat so it shows up in bold. Good morning, Andy. How are you today? I just modded you. And who else did I see coming in? Lots of people. Welcome in, everybody. KMF is here, creatively inspired. Welcome in. Humble Living Co. Welcome in. Lake Dad, Cardinal Crafts, Monica, Barb, Beeves, and Car, Boxer Mama, Daniel, Joan, Briss Layton. Welcome in. Art Jules KMF. Okay, I got everybody, I think. I'm okay. I slept in a little bit, so I'm a little bit fuzzy and had to start this late. But other than that, I'm doing okay. I'm still fighting this stupid cold, although I'm on the back end finally. So fortunately, it was one that didn't come with a cough. So it never went to my chest. It was all just a head cold. So thank goodness for that. Because when you start getting those chest colds, they last forever. Welcome in. Good morning, Michelle and Teresa. All right. So Thursday morning, how's everyone's week going? It's April 2nd. That's crazy, right? April 2nd, new month. What does everyone have going on this month? It's Easter, at least leading up to Easter. Hope you have some fun plans and enjoy that time with family, hopefully. I have a son who lives we live in Utah. He lives in Washington State. He's coming with his spouse to visit. So that'll be nice. We're going to have them for a few days. And my other two kids live close. So I'll have my whole family here. So that'll be nice. And we just became empty nesters last fall. My youngest daughter graduated high school and is at college, but she's at college just about 20 minutes away. But we had her go ahead and live on campus so she could get that experience living away, and she's doing well. And she'll be home. And I have one granddaughter who is going to be 2 this summer. She's a delight. We get to have her come hang out with us a couple of times a week. And she's just absolutely adorable. Light of my life right now. I love having her, love spending time with her. She's just so cute. So that's a little bit about me. So we're in that 55 plus category and living a good life, enjoying being on Whatnot. How's everyone else doing? What questions do you have? Please read the show notes. In the show notes, there are a bunch of starred bullets that give you links to where you can go to get help on Whatnot, the official places that you can go to get help. So those are super important for you when you're just trying to do things and you have a question. Those are the places you should go first. And the help.whatnot.com or frequently asked questions. Does everyone know how to get to frequently asked questions in the app? So if you're in the app, just go to your account. So you just go to your account and then you go down and there is a frequently asked questions at the very bottom. So on your main profile, hit your little account. Frequently asked questions is the same as help.whatnot.com. That's where it takes you. And if you can see my screen here, you literally just type whatever topic you need help with in there, and it will take you to all the articles that mention that word. I think one thing for new sellers that's frustrating is sometimes you don't even know the question to ask. So, um, if you need help in that way, just coming here and typing a couple of different keywords that you think you're looking for will help you find a bunch of different articles. Also, please, if you haven't already, make sure that you do the tutorials in the Seller Academy, which is the um, second or third. It's the third start bullet, right? Let's see. Yeah, Seller Academy is the third start bullet in there. So that's super important because it gives you all the basics. Okay. How do you become a Premier Shop and what does it really do for you? So, in case you didn't notice, we just added a little bling. So we're Premier. You have the biggest thing is that you have to be able to sell $50,000 gross in 3 months. And then you also have to meet other criteria. So you have to, thank you. So you have to have accurate, well, you have to have certain parameters on your shipping time, on your response time, and you have to have um, quality listings. Okay, Michelle says I have a 4.9 rating. I can't see where I earned less than 5. So probably, Michelle, someone gave you a rating with just a number of stars, but did not leave a comment, and those reviews do not show up. I know that's frustrating. So probably someone left you a review or left you a rating, but if they don't put words, comments in there, it doesn't show up in your reviews. And so you don't have any idea that someone left a lower than 5-star review. So the best thing to do is just kind of go, oh, well, and bury it because you just work hard and make sure to never get a bad review again. And if you have a ton of reviews, it doesn't really matter that much because it just gets buried. But yeah, sadly, it would be nice to reach out to them. If you did have someone respond or reach out to you, make sure you're responding quickly. Try to make sure that you handle everything diplomatically so that there isn't a possibility to, have bad reviews. But they are going to happen. And people are, you'll have a few bad eggs that won't even bother to reach out and they just put a review on there. And if you try to reach out to them, they won't even respond. So you just it's just the nature of what we do. Like Vintage Chick said, sometimes, would be nice if they would reach out, but if they don't, there's not a whole lot you can do. You can reply to reviews where they leave comments, but obviously if they didn't leave a comment, there's nothing you can do. So, I don't know if you reached out to customer service, they might be able to tell you if that's the case. What kind of a star value it was, but they won't tell you who it was or whatever because you just don't see them at all. Because there's a lot of people who will just go in and click the stars and call it good. And it's fine if they do that and they're giving you 5-star reviews, but yeah, that is frustrating. Let's see. Can you go to the post office and pick up boxes to use for shipping, or do you have to order them? FOMO, you can go pick some up, but they don't have all of them usually. My post office usually has just the main flat rate boxes and maybe a few of the priority ones, the envelopes. They do not stock the padded mailers in most post offices. You either have to ask for them from behind the desk. Sometimes they'll give you some. You do have to order. They don't put them out in the lobbies because too many people abuse those and use them as bubble wrap. So yeah. Hey Reba, how are you today? Welcome in. So yeah, you do have to order those. And it's pretty simple. You just go on USPS.com, create an account, order free shipping supplies. They'll drop them off at your house on their regular postal route. It takes, anywhere from a week to 10 days usually. The bubble mailers take a little bit longer because I think they ship those out of somewhere else separately. So yeah, just get an account, get them ordered, and you can order all of the flat rate ones and all of the priority ones. So if you use any of the priority sized ones. Oh, your package arrived today. Good. Awesome. Oh, it arrives today. Awesome. I always am excited for people to open their packages because there's just so many beautiful things that we send out, and I always think about people opening them, and I'm like, yay, fabric. So I love buying fabric. I love opening fabric packages. So I know everybody else probably does too. So I know we get a little bit too excited about it, but it's our thing. It's our thing. Welcome in, everybody. Thanks for joining. Please read the show notes. If you have any questions, put them in chat with a question mark. And thanks for being here. How is everybody doing? So, Vintage, I just moderated you too. Whoever can stick around, great. If you can't, don't worry about it. Love me some fabric too, FOMO. Too much. So today we are doing one of our estate shows, and she had a little too many quilt kit type stuff, and I've been slowly going through those, and oh my goodness, do I have some beautiful stuff today. The lady whose estate this is worked at a quilt shop for like 20 years, and she taught a lot of the classes, and so she had bins full of pre-made blocks, because every time she would teach a class, she would make another block. And so it's all these beautiful blocks made from these classes she taught. And I have some of them that there's enough to make a whole quilt. So if you love some pretty blocks. What is the best resource for training for new sellers? Jess Wag, the best resource first is for you to go to the Seller Academy and go through all those tutorials. And then you need to do practice shows. So practice shows, they're private. When you schedule a show, it's a private show. And you do those private shows. There's also a dummy show called a rehearsal show. Is that what they call it? Someone tell me if I'm wrong. That you can do, but it's not a live show. It just lets you go in the app and play with all the settings and learn how to use them. And then other than those two things, honestly, it's just you learn as you go. You come to things like this, you get all the resources we provide, and you slowly learn all the things you need to learn. But go through all those tutorials in the Seller Academy. It's the third star bullet in my show notes. Go there and take all those little mini classes that are in there. And then check your emails from Whatnot. If you're relatively new, they will have been sending you emails with different, helps and things you can do. So make sure you pay attention to your email and make sure your Whatnot emails are not going to spam, so that you get all the resources they send to new sellers. Because they'll send you a bunch of incentives, they'll send you links to things. They really do try to provide a lot of help. So make sure you utilize it. All right, I wanted to talk about a specific topic today, and that is once you start selling in your seller hub. Let me just show you. So in your seller hub, you have a link to analytics. So you scroll down on the hamburger menu and you see your seller analytics right there. These are best viewed on the web version. In fact, when you try to open it on mobile, it tells you to use the web version. And it's because the analytics have all these charts and graphs. It's hard for them to program it to show up on a little mobile screen in a way that's really useful. So open it on a laptop or a PC and view there. But in the analytics, you need to be paying attention to all the numbers that you can look at. And one of the ones that's really important is, what is your average amount that you are getting per order or per item sold? That's how it is per item sold. You'll have an average per item sold. Pay attention to that, because that makes a huge difference if you can work on improving the amount you get per item sold. What do you do to improve that? Well, you've got to figure out, what you're sourcing. Is that what people want to buy? What you are starting your pricing at, is that working for you? Do you need to up it? Do you need to lower it a little bit? You need to really, really focus on that, because that ultimately will make the biggest difference to your profitability in the long run. Because think about it this way. You can have a seller who comes on here and sells 100 items at $1 start. And let's say it averages, about $3 an item. So if you sell $100 at three, or 100 items at $3, you've got a $300 gross sales, right? You can have another person on who comes on and sells, maybe every 30 items they sell, they're getting $10. They only had to sell 30 to make the same amount. Please pay attention to that number and really work to improve how much you make per item. And I know that seems very simplistic, but it is that simple. What can you do with what you're selling to improve that you make a better profit per item? Maybe you're selling the wrong thing. Maybe the stuff that you're picking up and sourcing is not what people want, and they're not willing to pay more than, a certain price. You need to really focus on that and make sure it makes sense. Because, yeah, you can work your butt off and sell hundreds of items for, $1 or $2, but ultimately, you're just kicking yourself all day long selling a little bit, or a lot of stuff for a little bit, and the work is the same. You know what I mean? You still have to ship all of that. And if you're, selling a ton of stuff at a lower cost, the shipping is actually more work. What can you do to improve that number? And don't start whining at me. Well, nobody will bid anything up. Well, that may be true, but maybe you don't have the right stuff that people want. Or maybe you're not pricing it in a way that people will pay more or because of how you're structuring your shows. So look at it from the flip side and figure out what you can do to make that number go up. And you should be constantly seeing it going up because you're sourcing smarter, you're selling it better, you're pricing it right, you're creating an atmosphere and a show where people will bid it up a little bit more. Okay. Does that make sense? Does anyone have questions about that? That's just one thing I've been really focused on that has helped me improve a lot. So I wanted to share that. So be honest, dig deep, be honest, look at your process, look at what you're selling. How can I improve what I sell, how I sell, how I format my shows so that I get a better, price per item sold at higher price than I am now. Thank you. That's exciting, right? It's about time. We, like I said, are in that 55 plus community. I've been on the app for almost 4 years. Premiere is about, let's see, when did they introduce Premiere? About a year and a half ago. And we probably should have done it a lot sooner, but we like being, able to have a lot of flexibility with our time. And so that's what I really focused on was improving what I sell things for so that I've improved how I source, I've improved what I sell things for so I can get a better higher price per item sold versus having to sell more. Does that make sense? So that's how I feel like we were able to achieve it. Now the issue is once you get Premier status, how do you maintain it? And then someone asked, is it worth it? That's a mixed bag, honestly. Is it worth it? Yes, because obviously the things that you get with being Premier are really good benefits. But if you can't maintain it and it's too much work to maintain it and you just can't keep up, then maybe not. So you've got to put things in place to make sure that you can maintain it. One of the things I shared with someone yesterday is that think about when you put money in the bank and if you've ever taken a finance class or talked to a banker, they always talk about compounding interest, right? So compounding interest, once you have a certain amount of money, then the interest just goes because you keep adding more money and that interest starts compounding until it's just like phenomenal. It's kind of like that with Premiere. Once you hit um certain goals, reach certain plateaus, it just starts compounding because you've gotten so many followers, so many sales. Your shows are starting to get more and more recognized, and it starts compounding. And that's one of the benefits. And one of the benefits is that the visibility, because when you're a Premier status seller, your shows always get more um, visibility in search. So that's cool. And you do get a little bit of a reduced commission. Honestly, that's one of the least favorable benefits of being Premier because it really only accounts for about, if you add it up, if you're staying right at the limit, it only adds up to about $400 a year. So it's not that great, but that's a decent chunk of money. But the other benefits are honestly what it's all about. So that's kind of where I lie on that. Jers asks, how does max shipping work? After the initial 921, are sellers then charged by box or weight? So it depends on how you have your shipping setting set. So if you can fit almost everything that someone buys in one package, then you don't have to pay any extra if you're offering that reduced shipping. Are you offering the reduced shipping? Are you new enough that you don't have the max? So you are offering reduced shipping. Okay, so you're setting it for buyer pays max 921. Okay, so if you sell stuff that will mostly fit in flat rate packaging, like 90% of the time, then you don't pay anything because everything fits in flat rate packaging and it's good to go. If you aren't able to offer flat rate packaging because your stuff doesn't fit in flat rate packaging, then you're charged based on the settings that you put in there. So if you have it set for 1 to 5 pounds priority, 5 pounds and over ground advantage, once they hit 5 pounds of items, and it starts charging the ground advantage rate, then it's by weight. So once they hit 5 pounds. So what can you do to help, bigger sellers honestly just do flat rate on both, because then on the back end, no matter what you have to do, you only got charged as the seller $9.21. So if you're selling at a high enough volume, it's beneficial to just have it set for 1 to 5, 5 and over, both at flat rate. And then the few times that you have to change that up to something else, some other kind of packaging, then the base rate you got charged as a seller is still 921, and then you're only having to pay what it costs additional to send it ground advantage or priority. And then also you need to be as accurate as possible on your weight so that you don't get dinged too much on the shipping, and actually it was less weight and you could have paid less. Because once they calculate that, there's no going back. So you need to be super accurate on your weight. Use custom shipping profiles if you need to, so that if you have items that are, need to be shipped by themselves, you already have that all set up and it knew exactly how much to charge and to separate, unbundle that item. All right. So what do you sell, Jers? Hey, Endless Treasure, welcome in. How are you today? So, depends kind of what you sell. And I have a couple. Everybody make sure Jersey Lady. That makes sense. I always look at people's names and I'm like, I don't ever know how to say people's names. Jersey Lady. Yeah, what do you sell? Thank you, Avery. All right, so in my auction tab, I have a bunch of guides, information, links to things. So make sure you go into the shop. So just click the little shop button right here and then navigate to the auction tab to look at all those things. And one of the things I have in there is this choosing basic shipping settings. I just pinned that one. This one is one that it doesn't say do this. It says, what do you sell? What kind of items do you sell? This is a guide to help you. It's kind of a decision tree. If you do if you sell this, if you sell this, if you have stuff that fits in these kind of packaging, it kind of guides you as to what shipping settings to use. So yeah. First tax appointment as a reseller today. You're nervous? Yeah, that's always nerve-wracking because you don't really always know what to expect. Let's see. Megan says, what is Best Followers Givey to do for fabric sellers that's low cost to the seller? Something that will fit in a paper envelope. So, come up with something that you can send that will go in a paper envelope. And the paper envelope guide is right here. I just pinned it. So if you don't already have the envelope shipping set up, here's how to do it. So just tap the picture, tap it again, take a screenshot. Here's the little step-by-step how to set it up. And what can go in a paper envelope? Well, it has to be a paper envelope. It has to be less than a 1/4 inch thick. And it can't be bumpy, lumpy. It can't be so stiff that it won't go through their machines. So don't send anything like stiff metal. And it can't weigh more than 3 ounces. So that's your guidelines. So come up with something cute that you can either, some people are just sending a fat eighth of fabric. And that's fine. You can, press it flat, put it in there, put it in a little plastic bag and throw it in the envelope. Those work. You can do embroidered patches. You can do stickers, although stickers are kind of getting old. You can do gift cards, but gift cards cost a little bit more money, and you can't do anything that's a denomination above $20 because there's a rule that anything sent in a paper envelope should not be valued at more than $20. So don't do gift cards over that. You cannot do a coupon as a giveaway. That's a rule that a lot of people didn't realize. Because here's the thing about a giveaway, it has to be something that they actually win that's an actual thing. A coupon is not an actual thing. Requires a purchase for the future for you to actually get something. And so it requires a purchase. And the giveaways have to be no purchase necessary. Okay. Yes, little patterns, like the little quilt patterns that are on little cards. There's little patterns that come on little postcard size. There's some that come in little packages that are small, stuff like that. So be inventive, come up with something that's unique to you, that is, a nice little thing to get, but not, so it's inexpensive for you. I've sent little sets of quilt squares that people can make like little coasters out of or something. I do the bookmark kits. You guys have seen those, right? That's kind of my thing. So I send a little pattern that I created and 3 little squares of fabric and interfacing for them to make a bookmark. And it goes in an envelope if they haven't purchased something else. So it's inexpensive for me to make and send. So yeah. And I think the embroidered patches are well received too. You can buy it in bulk, get some cute ones, and send those as giveaways as well. So there's lots of different ideas out there. Brainstorm, come up with something unique, and that will save you a lot of money on giveaways. And then for buyer giveaways, you can do whatever because they bought something, but you do still need to keep it lightweight so that in case they bought a lot, you're not having to, totally redo the packaging for the giveaway. So I usually do free fabric. Who doesn't just love free fabric, right? So fat quarters, half yards, whatever you feel like you can afford to do on a buyer's giveaway. Um, and honestly, I'm kind of on the fence about giveaways in general, but I do think giveaways help. They definitely help keep people in your shows, and they do help you build your following. So in that way, they're super important. Um, Fortunately, we're in more of a niche category where I'm at, and so we don't get a lot of givey goblins coming to our shows trying to win the stuff, because we give away mostly fabric and craft supplies. So you don't get a lot of people that are on the hunt for someone giving away an iPad or something, right? Um, but when you do shows like that, where you give away nicer stuff, you will have people come just to try to win your giveaways that don't normally buy in your category or from you. So just be aware of that, and don't get all out of sorts if someone does, because that's the nature of giveaways. You have to follow the rules, and that means no purchase necessary. So if they come in and enter your giveaway and fill out the form and win your giveaway and they didn't buy anything, it is what it is. Don't do giveaways if you're not willing to be okay with that. That is how they work. Those are the rules. Whatnot has to follow the federal and state laws that comply with giveaway sweepstakes rules. And so do you. You are the business owner. Whatnot is not sponsoring the giveaway, they're just providing the platform. You are sponsoring the giveaway. It's your business. So you have to comply with federal and state regulations about giveaways. And the main big thing is no purchase necessary. So if you're not okay with that, don't do them. I see a lot of people getting all out of sorts about that. And it's like, dudes, it's a giveaway. It's a sweepstakes, right? Basically. And anytime you enter a sweepstakes, the rules about those are like 3 pages long. It's ridiculous, but it is what it is. So make sure you follow them, because you can get in trouble if you don't send, or you don't fulfill, or send them something different than it shows they won. You can actually get your account shut down. So be careful about that. All right. Any other questions? Let's see. FOMO asked earlier, so I need to wait to schedule my first show until I have all the boxes. Well, yeah, if your post office isn't close and you can't get the things you need, then yeah, you would want to have all your shipping supplies ready to go before you do your first show. But you can go down to the post office and pick up the basics. So it's not, that huge. Unless you're anticipating that you're going to sell thousands of things, then yeah, you might want to wait. Welcome in. Hey, all things fabric. How are you? Sorry, I'm a little bit out of sorts because I've had this nasty cold, and it's funny how much it affects your brain just as much as it affects everything else. So I've been really fuzzy. I'm not 100% on my game these days till I get better. Thank you. Thank you. It's exciting. Overdue, exciting, a little bit nerve-wracking. Now you have to try and maintain it. So thanks for being here, everybody. All right. So I was talking, yeah, I'm on the mend. It's pretty much gone. It's just, that lingering fatigue and lingering stuffiness, and you just don't get as good of rest and all those things. So I'm doing a lot better. All right. What else did I want to talk about? On the 15th or 16th, let me see what day it is. We will be doing a show. Let me find it. Here it is, the 15th. So this show right here, make sure you have that one bookmarked. That one I'll be in front of the camera with Bert, and we'll be talking about social media and what you can do to improve your marketing and social media. And I will tell you, social media is super important. There's a limitation from because of rules and also because of perception of what you can actually do on this platform to market yourself. You need to network like crazy, but other than that, you can't really do a lot of, so to speak, marketing on the platform because it's considered either against terms of service or spammy to just sit there and share your show. So be really careful about that. There was someone in a show the other day who sat there and messaged everybody with a promotion during the show. That is totally against terms of service, totally spammy. Don't do it. So I know it's tempting to want to go into shows, promote yourself, and you can promote if the seller allows it and if the seller gives you permission. It is actually against terms of service to go into a show and just start dropping, my show is on Tuesday, everybody come, blah, blah, blah. That's against terms of service without permission from the seller. Now, a lot of sellers state that they allow promotions, or they'll have a time where they allow people to promote, or if you raid them, they usually allow you to promote. So always make sure you have permission before you just promote yourself in someone else's show. Be careful about that. And don't just share your shows randomly. That's considered spam. So don't just sit there and go out and share your show to, everyone you can think of, or go into someone else's show and message all of their, all the people in their chat. That's spam. Don't do it. Okay. So I know you're like, well, but it's available. Yeah, it's available, but it's available so that you can share your show legitimately to the people who wanted, or if you have a group that agrees to share shows, those are fine. Okay. So instead, you need to be using social media. You need to have a Facebook and a YouTube and a TikTok and a whatever, Instagram, whatever you already use. And if you don't use any of them, don't have any of them, you need to get some started. Figure out where you have the best audience for what you sell and get some social media started up. And I know that seems overwhelming on top of selling, but it does make a big difference. So do it. And we're going to be talking about that and talking about which, platforms and things that you can do. Now, do you have to be a superstar social media person and, be monetized on YouTube and all that other stuff? No. You just have to have enough of a presence that it is helping you organically grow your business on Whatnot. And the more you do, the more you get. It's that simple. The more you promote and do things on social media, the more it's going to help you grow on Whatnot. So you decide, what you put in is what you're going to get out. And you do have to do smart social media. You can't just, it's got to be good content that people are interested in, that makes people come and follow you and recognize you and see your shows, and you get reminded of their shows on the other platforms. So get followers on those other platforms. I think probably the biggest social media that most fabric craft people use is Facebook. That's where I see the most action. So we have quite a few sellers that have groups that you can join. We have a couple of generic groups you can join that aren't necessarily associated with a specific seller. And it's important to be active on those. There are a lot of whatnot groups that are just whatnot seller groups. Um, don't get too many of those. It clogs your feed with a lot of negativity because people go on those groups and complain and bitch and moan about everything. Um, and you may find yourself being like, ugh, I only have it. I'm only in one of those, and I do it mostly just to keep a pulse on what people are experiencing. Um, but you can get, you can get, oh, I lied. I'm on one other. I'm on one that's a raid train one, but that's a little bit different because it's raid train themed and they try to keep it, narrowed down to just raid trains. So if you're on Facebook, go look up some of those whatnot groups that are in your category or, just more whatnot in general. And that does help because you can do some networking and promoting in those groups as well. So yeah, we'll talk a lot about that in that show on the 15th. Any questions you have, please put them in chat with a question mark. Let me make sure I didn't miss something while I was yawing on. Let's see. Yeah, I think everybody has been answered or acknowledged. Speaking of that, this is the type of show where if you would like to network with other sellers, please feel free in this show to share your next show and ask people to follow you and follow each other back. It definitely can't hurt in shows like this because I'm not selling anything and I allow people to promote in this show. So feel free to share your shows in here and follow each other, bookmark each other's shows. When you're a newbie, sometimes that's what gets you kickstarted, right? Is just networking with some other sellers who are also new, and you can kind of help each other out, bookmark each other's shows, share each other's shows, outside the platform, and also attend each other's shows and network with each other and kind of help each other out. This platform is all about community. That's why I'm here walking on my treadmill talking to you guys instead of binge watching some show I like, because it's all about networking and helping lift other people up. And in turn, it lifts you up. So, a huge amount of that. How much product should I have to start my first show? So, tell me what you sell. First of all, Maria. And we just got rated by Caitlin was here. Thank you, Caitlin, for the raid. So you sell fabric. So you need to have, when you're first selling, depending on how long you plan on being on, and I will say that the minimum amount you should be on when you're a new seller is 2 hours minimum, because it takes people at least 30 minutes to even find you when you're new. And then after you start getting people coming to your show, you're going to want to stay on longer to actually make something happen. And then if something starts happening, you're going to want to stay on a little longer to make that even better. So, minimum 2 hour show. And in an hour, you usually need about 30 to 40 items to show and run. And then you can repeat some of those that didn't sell, but then it's not a bad idea to have a fresh, at least some fresh stuff for the second hour. So I would say, and you don't have to have them all pre listed. You can do random pulls if you've been watching other people's shows and how they do it. You can show things just under, this is a bunch of yard cuts, this is a half yard cut pile, however you want to structure it. But that's a good rule of thumb, that you need 30 to 40 items in a fabric show. Okay. Susie, how do you handle, hey, how are you today? How do you handle negative reviews as a newbie? Do negative reviews hurt you? Yes. If you're new and you get some negative reviews, because you have so few reviews, it can really hurt your rating. So you have to be really careful when you're new to make sure you're doing the very best you can, responding to people, make sure you accurately represent what you're selling. um do your best to ship things out very quickly and that they're shipped nicely, packaged nicely, to prevent as much as possible having something happen. Inevitably things can get lost, delayed. That's not on you, but it can sometimes get you a negative review. So you just do your best to offset those. It may happen, it does hurt you if, because if you only have 10 reviews and someone comes in and slams you with a 2 or 3 star review, it's going to affect your rating. I would encourage people when you're new, when you're talking, put it even in your show notes. Please reach out to me if you have a problem with your order so I can make it right. Something to that effect. Word it nicely. And you can verbally say that too. I'm new. I want to do my very best to, provide you with the best experience. When you get your order, if there's anything that you aren't happy about, whatever. I mean, you don't want to overdo it because you don't want to invite problems. But when you're new, that's a big deal. And you can also, write little notes. If you're pleased, consider leaving a review. Don't overdo that either. But you know what I'm saying. Okay. So then that kind of offsets it. Once you get established, the best way to deal with bad reviews, if you get them before they give you a chance to make it right, is to just, if there was anything that you did wrong, let's say that you have a review that says, I didn't get the right stuff. Well, dang it, you better be reaching out to them to make it right if that's true. You're always going to have a few buggers here and there that leave a review that's not accurate, that they're just snippy or they're having a bad day, or I don't know, they stubbed their toe that morning. You never know, but you got to do what you can. But try to encourage people to reach out to you first so that you can make it right. Make sure people trust that you will make it right. And then they're going to contact you first before they just go leave a negative review, right? So build trust by, making sure everything is as accurate as possible before you sell it. So really, look at your stuff and make sure, if there's any flaws, call them out or don't sell it. Be as accurate as you can on size, on weight, on how you package things, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Stay home to shop says I also start every message with 5-star valued customer and thank people during my live stream who leave 5-star reviews. There you go. That's awesome. So people appreciate that you recognize that they're appreciated. I still do handwritten notes on every order. It's not, a big tall tale or anything. It's just thank you so much for your order again. Thanks. And I always include something with some extra gift with all new buyers. And my regulars sometimes get something extra too. And I always have a little note. Appreciate you. Thanks again. So do things to make people feel good about continuing to order from you. That goes a long way. That goes a long way. Okay. And always be very gracious in your shows. Thank people for being there. Thank them for spending their time with you. There's no, I mean, every person who comes to your show, they are spending that valuable time in your show. Make sure you show appreciation and that you're grateful that they're there. Okay. My writing sucks due to hand tremors. Any other suggestion about sending notes? Pre-print something, a little tag, a little sticker. Andy makes stickers. You can get some little thank you stickers that are cute that you can attach to the invoice. Yeah, just get some little stickers that you attach or pre-print a little note that you've put your signature on that you can then just, make copies of. um, come up with some cute little thing. I don't recommend going overboard like with business cards or too much stuff because honestly, those mostly end up in the trash if you've spent a lot of money on them. People just don't save stuff like that. Where do you put it? How do you keep it? So don't go overboard. Um, plus it's not really environmentally friendly, in my opinion, to be sending a lot of, extra stuff into people's package that's not useful. So I would, I lean more towards putting a cute sticker on the invoice, writing the little note if you can write, um, maybe a little tag, maybe a little ribbon, something like that. Let's see. Stay home is responding. Yeah. Your writing's worse than a doctor's. That's pretty bad. If you're admitting that, that's pretty bad. Because doctors have horrible writing overall in general. I think it's because they have to do so much charting. Although it's interesting because now that in the medical field, almost everything is electronic medical records, you don't see their writing as often. So they don't have to do as much handwriting. And there's even doctors now who have their medical assistant come in with them and they don't even type. Their medical assistant types everything. So it's kind of funny. I have a background in the medical field, so it's been kind of interesting to see how that has morphed into technology. So now as a nurse, I see their typing section. Yeah, there you go. Probably true. Well, and in medicine, there are so many acronyms, right? And so you have to learn the acronyms and it's regional. Sometimes there'll be an acronym in some area. And you're like, what the heck is that? And then you ask, and they're like, it's this. And you're like, oh, because they used to use acronyms for everything. So then you have to know all the medical acronyms that stand for things. And I don't blame them for having acronyms because there's so many things that are, big, long scientific or weird names or whatever. So it's kind of funny. We have acronyms in fabric too, right? That we use that everyone's like, what's that? Like, what's WOF? What's EOB? EOB in medical is something different than EOB in fabric. So EOB in medical is your explanation of benefits that you get from the insurance company showing what your services were and what's going to be covered or not or whatever. In fabric, it's the end of bolt. Yep, everyone has acronyms. All right. Let's talk about something else. So, in my auction tab, all these little things that are in there are documents for you to look at, to screenshot. So make sure you just tap the shop button, go into the auction tab, and go through all of those things that are in here. This is a really good one. Blazin' Bunny put this together, and it's a really awesome little chart it's for all of us who like visual things better than trying to read. So it's a nice little visual chart. So if you're struggling to figure out how shipping works with the different types of boxes and labels, this gives you a nice little visual of, okay, if it's this label, it can go on this kind of box and vice versa. So make sure you take a screenshot of this little chart that Blazin' Bunny put together. And she does seller chat. She's awesome. So make sure you follow her as well. And let's see what else is in here. This is a good, it's just a copy of the Postal Service's commercial pricing chart. It helps you to understand how the postage is calculated for Ground Advantage. So Ground Advantage is based on zones. And so the zones are where the seller lives versus where the buyer lives. The rate is going to be slightly different for every person. That's why there's not just a base. You know, when someone buys their first item in your show, if it's an under a pound item, the rate for someone who lives close to you is $4.21. The rate for someone who lives super far from you is $4.85. And you, as a seller, don't see that. The buyer sees it. So, but it is different. And that's also why when you're sitting there looking at your orders and what you got charged, it's different from person to person because the fee, the 2.9% that you get charged is based on the total price, and the tax and the shipping are included in that. That's why every order is different charges, because it's a different tax rate and a different shipping rate depending on where they live in proximity to you. So if people get confused about that, that's why. Okay, that's why every order is different. So make sure you understand that as well. Anyway, there's just lots of good stuff in there. Make sure you go through that auction tab and get all those things that could be helpful for you. Again, if you're joining, please read the show notes and make sure you have a screenshot of the show notes, especially those starred bullets that are in the show notes. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 starred bullets, and it is links to, or it tells you where to go for official whatnot help. So make sure you're paying attention to those. Okay. Good morning, Field Trip Quilting. How are you today? It's a good morning. All right. Yeah, so make sure you pay attention to everything in the show notes. Take a screenshot of those so that you have a way to go back and refer to them. We're not allowed to put exact links that are clickable. It's snowing again. Oh my gosh. Remind me where you're at. I think you're in Midwest somewhere, aren't you? Remind me where you're at. So we're getting rain, but not snow. Although we may be getting some snow in the mountains yesterday, but it rained almost all day yesterday. Minnesota. Oh yeah. So you're still up in that area that's getting the winter from HE double toothpick, which we had 3 years ago. We had one of those winters 3 years ago where it started snowing, and basically we had snow on the ground until almost May. And even then, the mountains clear through the summer, and it was flooding because where I live, all of our water resources come from spring melt from the mountains. And so we were battling floods. Super fun. I need sun too. I we lived in Washington State for 3 years, and it's one of the most beautiful green places I've ever lived. Stunning, stunning scenery. But because it rains so much, I could hardly stand it. But it's because I moved there from Arizona. And Arizona is pretty much 365 sunshine. Even on the days that we get rain, the rain stops and the sun comes back out. And so to go from that extreme to the other extreme was a killer. So the winter in Washington is just like, oh my gosh, if I don't see the sun again, I'm going to die. And so tons of people who live there, um, vacation in Florida, Arizona, Hawaii during the winter just to get out of there and see some sun because it gets super depressing. So, yeah. Yeah, it is hard. It's hard if you don't see sunshine, especially if, like I said, you come from somewhere where you see sunshine a lot. And Andy knows sunshine. Yep. Yeah, you have to have a sun happy light in places like that. A lot of people do that. They get one of those sunlights that they just kind of sit under every once in a while and get happy again. So it's amazing how much that affects our mood, isn't it? It's like dreary days, you just feel dreary. And sunshine really helps. All right, what time are we looking at? Well, I was late getting started this morning because my alarm went off. And it was one of those mornings where I was like, okay, I'm getting up. And then I look at the clock and it's been 20 minutes. And I'm like, crap. So I was late getting up and getting going. So, yeah. What does everyone have questions? Does anyone have questions? Does anyone have comments they want to make? Just make sure you have these chats bookmarked if you feel like the content is helpful to you. You're welcome to come in anytime during these chats and ask even the dumbest what you would think. There's no dumb questions because when you're new, sometimes you don't even know what to ask, let alone, ask an intelligent question. So feel free to ask away anything that you need help with. And message me if you need me to talk about a certain topic. I'm happy to, have a list of topics that we address. And on the 15th, we're going to be doing a show where we're on at night and we'll be talking about social media. I'm not the social media expert in any stretch, but social media does make a huge difference. So you do need to be doing things on social media. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being here, Jenny. How do you deal with requests? I feel like my show has gotten so many people asking for special fabrics and it can derail me. Yes, and I'm terrible with this. Me and you both, it does kind of derail your show. And I am a people pleaser. So when someone comes in and has a request, I'm like a squirrel. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to find them something. And it can totally derail your show. So I've had to really focus on that. And what I usually do is if I can immediately if I know where something is and I can immediately grab it and run it, I will do it because, hey, it's a sale, right? If not, then my usual answer is possibly, if I think it's possible that I'm going to be able to find something in the stuff I've got, And then otherwise, I'm usually like, no, I don't have that today, but please bookmark my upcoming shows because we have, we go through a lot of inventory and we probably will have something similar. But the other thing I have been doing, and this really builds trust and community, is if they're asking for something that I know another seller has a lot of, I will shout out that other seller all day long. That's a good thing to do. It builds community, it builds trust. People are like, wow, she's willing to, share that someone else has it. So shout out another seller, especially if it's something you don't specialize in. Yes, better to pass on the sale than lose 10 people who aren't engaged. Exactly. You know? So, and then another thing that you can do too is please message me because I do know I have something like that and I will find it for you and have it the next time, or I can message you and put it in the marketplace for you to buy. So, those are kind of the things I've been doing. But yeah, it is a struggle because I'm like you guys, I'm a people pleaser. I just want to stop and go find it for them. But you can't do that because it does derail your show. So, yeah. Um, you know, and we get some weird ones, right? I mean, like I've had people ask for something so very specific. And if I didn't even know what it was, I'm like, no, because I don't even know what that is. But do it in a way that's, nicer. In my head, of course, I'm like, what planet do you live on? But, you come in here asking me for something really strange. Yeah. And it's like they're out there fishing. But you know how quilters are sometimes. If you have a project and you ran out of, and you need one fat quarter or even less to finish something, you are like frantic trying to find that little bit of fabric so that it's going to match. Because otherwise, you're going to have to figure out what to do to make that project look right without the fabrics that you ran out of. So they get desperate sometimes to finish something, because they put so much work into a project and then it's like, oh my gosh, and that's why fabric people always overbuy because they don't want to be in that situation where they didn't have enough of something to finish something. So we all overbuy for that reason because it's like you can't be in that situation of not having enough to finish off something. So it's good. It's a good thing for us who sell because they always overbuy, right? Random question. Any tips on balancing life and whatnot? I'm not unhappy, but I work all the time. I think you have to have a set schedule. So when Bert and I first started doing this, we made a commitment, first of all, that we would not do any shows on Sunday. And we have kept that commitment. Sunday is, we're very religious, so that's our day for faith and family. And we have stuck hard core to that. And it makes a big difference because we know that we have that day to, do those other things. We also take Saturdays off 90% of the time. So we've been able to do this still taking our weekends off. And then on the weekdays, we take Wednesdays off. We don't do a show usually on Wednesdays. So we have a set schedule and we stick to it. And that's the key is you've got to set a schedule and stick to it. And you've got to take the time that you need for other things. And I know it's hard because really you're working, even when you're not doing shows, you're still sourcing, you're still packing, you're still thinking about, your shows. Do what you have to do to get organized and have a set schedule so that you can have a balance. And the more that you grow, the easier it gets just because you're not as stressed about, making enough. But, but it does become more work. Early on in the show, I was talking about the analytic that I think makes a big, big, big difference. I mean, there's lots of things that can make a big difference, but pay attention in your analytics to the average price per sale. And every time that you is improving, because a sale is a sale, right? But if you make more money per sale, there's less work involved for the same amount of money. What can you do to improve the price per sale? Maybe you're sourcing the wrong stuff. Maybe the price you're starting things out needs to change. Maybe, there's a lot of things you can do to improve that number. And it just depends on what you're selling. So really pay attention to what people want so that people are more willing to pay more for it because it's what they want. That makes sense. Okay. I've been on the fence about hiring some help with the non-show stuff so I can focus on running shows. Yeah, and you just have to decide what works for you. I mean, I'm lucky because my husband and I do this together, so it's two people instead of just one. But we kind of have decided that we don't want to go there. We don't want to have to hire help. So we have to do things smarter and still keep it within the two people. So what do you have to do? You decide. You decide what works for you. And really plan it out and do some deep thinking. I mean, I can't tell you how much my brain has expanded just trying to decide how things are going to work better, what we can do differently. You should be constantly brainstorming what you can change, what you can do differently. You've got to be flexible to be a reseller. It's a roller coaster ride. It really is. If you can't ride the roller coaster, you're going to really struggle because there's ups, there's downs. There's ups, there's downs in life anyway, but as a job, it's a lot different than just reporting to a job every day that has, a set number of tasks. You have to be able to just ride that roller coaster and be constantly flexible with how you do things. So, yeah. Yeah, every minute of the day, exactly. And that's kind of me too. And it gets a little bit better the more that you're experienced and the more that you know, the more that you are familiar with how things work. It does get a little bit easier, it becomes more second nature, but you still have to do a lot of things, because that's the other thing with reselling is that, what's viral and trending one day can be in the toilet the next day, and you've got to flip and do something different. It's that it can happen that fast, so you've got to really be on top of what's going on to keep on top. Yes, always pivoting. So if you're not and it also depends on your goals, because I'm saying that, but I'm saying that from the perspective of someone who, wants to be at a certain level. If your goal is just, I enjoy being on here, I want to sell enough to, be able to justify that I like to buy things, that's a totally different goal than someone who is trying to do this as their full-time income. So make sure you're focused on what you're doing for yourself and less focused on what everybody else is doing. What everybody else is doing doesn't really matter. What matters is what is your goal? What are you needing to achieve or wanting to achieve? Focus 100% on that. Can that change? Of course. Maybe you come on here, you also work full time, and then you get to a certain point that you have to decide, if I want to continue to grow this, am I going to quit my full-time job and do this full time? What does that mean? You've got to change how you figure out how it's going to work. And then maybe there's the opposite. I'm just not able to do enough on here to make it work. So I'm going to do a little bit less and rely on my other income for, my life. So you decide what works for you. And that's so important. I can't stress that enough because it's not worth being on here and selling if your brain and your emotions and your stress is, I can't do enough of this, to be where I want to be. Well, maybe that's not where you want to be. So focus on what what you can do, what you can handle, what makes sense for your life, and less on what anyone else is doing. Please, for your sanity, do that. Write it down. This is what I want to do on Whatnot. This is what I can do on Whatnot. And, have it based on, time, on monetary, on, growth, your growth curve, have it all written down so that you can really focus on that and pay attention to what you're doing for what fits your life, your family, your goals, and then if and when it changes, you change it up. Okay. So it's super important to pay attention to that so that you don't drive yourself crazy comparing yourself to what everybody else is doing. That makes sense? Any thoughts on that you'd like to share? I'd love someone to share, maybe the epiphany when you realized, oh my gosh, I'm just spinning because I'm looking at what everybody else is doing instead of focusing on what I need to do and what makes sense for me. I think people have to have that epiphany at some point, hopefully earlier on than later on. Yeah. Field Trip says, I've been doing a set schedule based on when I can get the mail picked up. Yeah, there you go. Don't compare yourself. Yeah, because it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter because no matter what you're doing, someone is doing something completely different that works for them. And it just doesn't make sense to sit there and compare yourself. And I know it's human nature. We are always constantly looking at everybody else and what they're doing and either wishing or whatever. But the more you can train yourself to be more focused on your own goals, on your own progress, on what makes sense for you, your life is going to be much smoother because the rest doesn't matter. The rest doesn't matter. Let's see. Yes, seeing bigger sellers doesn't mean they are more successful. Yes. I've been focusing on my margins and staying out of debt. Yes, that is so important. I mean, you don't know for sure, but you look at someone who's supposedly being hugely successful, you possibly could be netting the same amount of money because you're smarter about how you source and how you focus and how you spend your money. And maybe they're in debt up to their eyeballs and they're going to, crash and burn a month later. You don't know. And it doesn't really matter. And I'm not saying that you want that for anyone else. I'm just saying you don't know. So stop thinking about it. My husband is always having to remind me of this. He's really good about keeping me centered on that fact, you know. And we have really done a lot of things to be smart about how we source, about how we spend money, and we aren't in any debt in this endeavor because we've been really smart about that. Um, Staying out of debt is huge. So if you have to do a lot of extra expense and a lot of debt to make this happen, maybe that's not the right plan. You don't want to be in debt as a reseller because usually that means you have some kind of death pile of crap that nobody wants to buy. So be really careful about that. Yes. Yes. Let's see. Thursday and Friday shows help because you get that extra few days of shipping time. Yes, that can help. Um, yeah. And I'm saying all this stuff and you can hear in my voice, right, that I've had that problem too. So you're not alone. I have that problem of comparing myself to others, of overthinking what I think everybody else's lives are like. And it's just a normal thing for women. We kind of look at the world through oh, she's got this, she's got that, she's got this. I need that. We do that and we're so bad to ourselves in that way. You know, put your own goals, your own, you know, abilities, what you can and can't do, what works for your life in writing, and try to stay laser focused on that more. And it's going to free you up to be more focused on that. Instead of looking. And it's also one of the natures of the beast of modern social media that we're just bombarded with what everybody else is doing. And it's focused on, I always laugh because really, 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 have you ever been on someone's blog where they like show one of their normal posts and then they pan out? So they're showing some beautiful decorative thing they've put together and it's showing you, 5 square feet, and then they pan out and the rest of their house looks like a bomb went off. That's the reality, people. And that really is the reality. Everybody else's lives are just as chaotic, just as stressful. We all have problems. As perfect as it looks, it isn't. It isn't. So stop thinking it is. It isn't. Um, yeah, seeing other people get much better prices. Yeah, all those things. You have no control over them. You can only control and try to control what you're doing and what's happening for you. So spend your effort and your time working on that instead of looking at what everybody else is doing. It's so hard. It's so hard. You can tell I have a problem, right? It's so hard. All right. So together we can make sure we try, and that's a thing. Remind yourself and remind other people, stay focused on what you can do, what you have control of. From a parent's perspective, okay, I have 3 kids. From a parent's perspective, at a certain point, you have to let that kid grow up, right? You have to let go. And it's hard because as a mother, you want to put a big bubble around your kids and feed them what they need, right? But you can't do that. You have to let them grow up. Well, you have to do those things within your own life too to protect, you know, what you have control over. You only have control over yourself. That's it. You get to choose how you react. You get to choose how something makes you feel. You get to decide if you're going to get up in the morning and do this and that and the other. You know, you don't have control over other people. And if you do, you're evil. You know, if you're controlling other people's lives or trying to control other people's lives, that's wrong. Everybody has their own freedom, their own character, their own person to do what they want to do. And so stop trying to control what other people do. Focus on improving yourself and being the kind of person who promotes other people getting better and healthier and all that good stuff, right? So, yeah. If we are mostly fabric people in here, have you tested out selling quilts, linens, vintage notions in vintage category versus fabric? So yes, I've done that a lot actually. But I have a hard time with it because if you're not consistent, it's hard to get a repeat following. So but I will do vintage linen shows from time to time and put them in the vintage decor category if I have enough stock. But because I don't do it consistently, it's hard to get a good audience because they're all busy going to the regulars. That makes sense. So often I will mix it in, or like I said, every once in a while have a show in that other category. If you can be consistent enough in multiple categories, you can make it work. But it's hard to do that, you know, just to be keeping on top of doing some fabric shows and then trying to come up with another show in another category is hard to get, you know, crossover following. But it can be done. It can be done. And there are sellers that do it successfully. Definitely getting on raid trains helps. So getting on some raid trains that are crossover. There's a raid train that's like a vintage sewing. I've done that one before, and that one's fun because then you just save up all the cool vintage stuff you have and do that raid train or something. It's like a vintage sewing notions, and it's under most of the shows are under vintage decor and they just sell all the sewing stuff. It's a fun one. Yeah. That's another thing, you know, you can get raid trains are awesome. They really help you grow, but be careful about how many you do because it can kind of then take your focus away from your regular day in, day out successful shows if you're spending too much time getting ready for these niche raid trains that don't give you as much growth. You know, the thing that's important about raid trains when you're newer is helping you build a following and get out there and get your name out there. And so it's when you're newer, I think it's huge and important to do them. But once you're more established, be very picky about what raid trains you join because you want them to make sense for your growth, you know. But it definitely can expose you. I personally like doing a crossover raid train every once in a while, just so that I'm in another category where I'm not normally at, and people find me, and then they come and join us in the fabric community. So, you know, that does help. But the way that the algorithms work on Whatnot, um, are it's like high school, very clicky. You have, you know, certain categories, and because of how the algorithms work, when you come into the app, you choose the categories you want to follow, and it is very structured, pretty much showing you just the ones that you choose. And it learns your patterns and shows you the ones that you frequent. And so it's very clicky. So in order to get people from other categories to even know you exist, you have to kind of do a little bit of crossing over from time to time. And it doesn't hurt if you have some passions outside of fabric, sewing, quilting, crafting. If you like vintage, go hang out in some vintage shows and, try and build a little bit of at least people know who you are, and, maybe if there's some other categories you also have interest in, do the same thing. It's kind of hard to get a lot of crossover into fabric quilting sewing from um, anything more contemporary because people just they're like, what fabric? What the heck's that? You know, you don't get a lot of traction if you're hanging out in um, women's contemporary or, trading cards or, there just isn't going to be a lot of crossover because people who are in those categories don't have any interest in what we do. They're not going to come over and buy usually. So, but it can't hurt to network, for sure. Because you can definitely get, people to know who you are and possibly, oh, they'll say like, oh, my grandma quilts, I'll send her your way, or my sister quilts, I'll send her your way. Networking never is a bad thing. And on that note, when you're outsourcing, if you do a lot of physical sourcing, always talk about what you do. Share with everybody what you do. You'll be amazed how many people will sign up for the platform. Oh, you do that? Oh, send me the link. They'll sign up, they'll come to your shows, they automatically follow you through the link. It gets more people on the platform. So always network, in person, share with the people you meet in person what you do, what you're doing. People are fascinated by it, they'll sign up for the app, So always share. That's important too. All right, I need to get going. Anyone let me make sure I didn't miss any questions or comments that you guys wanted me to read. Let's see. And again, just make sure you have a copy of what's in the show notes. That's all my links to official places to get help. And then in the shop, in the auction tab, are all of my little cheat sheets and helps. And make sure you have copies of those. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday morning. I also multicast on YouTube. So if you missed part of a show and wanted to go back and see what I was talking about or what people were sharing, you can go to my YouTube account, which is in the show notes, and pull it up and go to the lives, and they will be there. Sometimes an immediate show takes a day to download and be there. Just depends on how quick the multicasting is working well. I'm also multicasting on Facebook, but Facebook, they aren't really saved for very long. So less, um, it's harder to find those. Those will be there immediately, but then they disappear out of the feed pretty quick. So, but all my social media links are in there. I'm just Draz on Whatnot across all social media. So all one word, Draz on Whatnot. I decided to just keep it. Well, I couldn't use Draz, too short for some of the platforms. So it's Draz on Whatnot. And I'm also on TikTok. And I don't do a lot of original content videos. I use social media more as a way to highlight what I'm already doing. Um, I need to get better at that, but it's just a matter of time. You only have so much time in a day. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm going to go find someone for us to raid into. And you guys make it a great day. And if you like what I do, what I have to offer, please bookmark those shows and come back. The Thread chapter is having a birthday show. Should we go raid the birthday show? That sounds fun. How about it? Let's do it. The Thread chapter. I'm going to get myself off the rails here so I don't fall. All right, raiding over to the Thread chapter. Maybe if I can type. There we go. I think I picked the right person. Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a marvelous day. Appreciate you. Say happy birthday.